nothing worse in fantasy football than drafting a player that turns out to be a massive bust. We've all been there. It's embarrassing. It's terrible. You end up doing awful in your league. Well, don't fear, because in this video, we're talking about 4 players who, in my opinion, are bust-proof and should absolutely be on your must-draft list. Starting at number 4, Kyle Pitts. Yes, I know. Hear me out before you freak out. The former 4th overall pick has had some horrible, horrific, terrible luck since entering the NFL. Outside of his 1,000-yard receiving season in year 1, he's had to deal with horrible quarterback play, terrible coaches, and some very unfortunate injuries. And on top of all that, he has 6 total touchdowns through his first 3 seasons. But talent has never been of question for Pitts. We know how special he is. I mean, listen, he's 6'6", 240 pounds. He runs a 4.4 40. He's just never had a chance. He's never really been given a fair shot since coming into the league. Just look at some of the quarterbacks he's had to deal with. Matt Ryan, his rookie year, who couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. It's a miracle Pitts had 1,000 receiving yards. Then it's Marcus Mariota, Desmond Ridder, Taylor Heineke, and then Arthur Smith as head coach. Like, he just hasn't had a fair shot. You got to feel terrible for the guy, but that is no reason to shy away from drafting him this year, because he's in a completely different situation. Zach Robinson comes over from LA as the new offensive coordinator. Raheem Morris comes over from the Rams as well as the new head coach. And obviously the biggest addition is Kirk Cousins coming from Minnesota, now under center. I'm not really worried about the Achilles tear, to be honest with you. And we know how much Kirk loves to throw to the tight end. Just look at the numbers last year. Through 8 weeks, TJ Hawkinson averaged 8.5 targets per game, and Justin Jefferson was active in 5 of those games. Pitts is going as the tight end 6 on underdog drafts right now at the end of round 5. I think that's an absolute value. At number 3, Anthony Richardson. In his 2 full healthy games last year, he averaged 25.7 fantasy points per game. That was more than Josh Allen or any other quarterback for that matter. And he led all quarterbacks in fantasy points per dropback. He has an extremely stable, solid floor because of his rushing ability. Richardson is in the perfect offense, littered with playmakers, a strong offensive line, and a wizard of a head coach, play caller in Shane Steichen. I mean, just look at Steichen's history. He knows how to develop young quarterbacks into superstars. He did it for Jalen Hurts. He did it for Justin Herbert, and he's on his way to doing the same thing with Richardson. Is Anthony's sample size as a passer great from last year? No, it's not great, but in fantasy football, we don't care a ton about his throwing ability when he's such a good runner. He scores a lot of touchdowns. That's why Justin Fields a couple years ago was the quarterback 6 in fantasy points per game. We know he's not a great passer as well, but it doesn't really matter for fantasy. I think Anthony Richardson is a better thrower of the football than Justin Fields. I think he's going to take big strides in that category as well in year 2, which gives him the upside of QB1 overall because of that. I think he's going to be a better passer this year than most people are expecting. His rushing ability is crazy, and yes, people could argue, well, he hasn't played with Jonathan Taylor yet. If I had to bet between Anthony Richardson and Taylor, which one is going to hurt the other one more? I think Richardson is going to hurt JT a lot more than JT is going to hurt Richardson, because JT is not going to see the work in the passing game that he saw last year, because when the play breaks down, Richardson is going to scramble. He's going to scramble for a lot of yards. He's going to be heavily involved in the red zone. He's going to take a lot of those easy touchdowns away from JT. And this might be a hot take, but I need to do more research, but I'm kind of leaning on JT being a bust at cost this year because of Richardson. I know you could argue that Richardson is going to open up more running lanes for JT, but just the history shows that it's usually not a good thing when your quarterback can run. I know Daniel Jones and Saquon have done it before, but Daniel Jones is not the runner, not the athlete that Anthony Richardson is. So all in all, draft Richardson at cost. I would not be opposed to even reaching for him if you have to. And I just don't see a scenario where Richardson busts this year because of his rushing ability. That's going to stabilize his floor. And then everything else added on that, his passing ability, his passing upside, his passing touchdowns, are just going to be cherries on top. At number 2, Ladd McConkey. It's extremely rare when you are able to draft a team's wide receiver 1 in round 6 or 7 who's attached to an elite quarterback in Justin Herbert. I'm very well aware you can get guys like Deontay Johnson in round 6, but Bryce Young is his quarterback. Bryce Young has proven already he's not very good. Justin Herbert is a top 5 NFL quarterback in my opinion. And Ladd McConkey is an absolute stud. I don't know how people don't understand this. In his final year at Georgia, Ladd was in the 91st percentile in separation percentage and yards per route run, and was in the 98th percentile in receiving grade. And on top of that, he is the best route runner in this class with impressive quickness and strong ability to change direction on a dime. He's also a deep threat with nice top speed, and he will make you miss an open space. And on top of all that, Ladd has a relentless motor and work ethic that, I know you're not going to like it, reminds me a lot of Cooper Kupp. And I honestly think he finishes as the wide receiver 2 in this rookie class, only behind Marvin Harrison Jr. in fantasy points per game. I think he crushes Malik Neighbors, who is going 2 to 3 rounds earlier. This should be simple, right? I mean, just look at the competition for targets that Ladd will have this year. Quentin Johnson and Joshua Palmer, 2 guys who I don't think are very good, who are not strong target earners. Ladd is going to absolutely lead the Chargers in all major receiving categories: targets, receptions, touchdowns. This feels like one of the safest picks in round 6, round 7, with immense upside. You could argue Greg Roman. I don't like Greg Roman as an offensive coordinator. I don't. His run-heavy ways in Baltimore are concerning, but I will say this. Lamar Jackson is not the passer that Justin Herbert is. I think Roman was catering the offense to the team's strengths, which was running the football with Lamar Jackson. So he's a smart enough of an offensive coordinator that he's going to be like, oh, well, Justin Herbert has one of the best arms in football. We're going to throw the ball. I mean, the Chargers don't have a great defense. The running backs are Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. They're going to be losing a lot of football games. I don't think Greg Roman is here to just coach for a year. They want to win, so what are they going to do? They're going to throw the football a ton with their best player, plain and simple. Justin Herbert just got his next Keenan Allen. Ladd is easily going to see 120 plus targets this year. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if we're talking about Ladd and Puka Nacua in the same sentence at the end of this year. And at number 1, Zamir White. This is what we know. Had an opportunity from weeks 15 to 18. He was special, averaging 23 touches, 114 total yards, and was the RB12 in fantasy points per game. And the advanced rushing metrics are even better. He was 13th in explosive run rate and 6th in yards after contact per attempt. So what does that tell us? He's not just a volume-based back. And on top of all that, he's big. He's 6 feet tall, 215 pounds. We like that. And he's fast. He ran a 4.440 coming out of college. And he has a head coach who loves to run the football. And they invested in an offensive lineman in the 2nd round in Jackson Powers Johnson, who was a center in college. He played some guard. He's going to play guard for the Raiders. They're going to have a good offensive line. They're on a team that's going to be very run heavy. And he has Alexander Madison to compete for touches with. We saw how bad Madison was last year, how inefficient of a runner he was. He's not going to touch any of Voigt's workload. You can get Zamir White in round 8. So you can get a running back who's going to see 250 to 300 touches this year in round 8. If that is not a league winner, I don't know what is. They have enough talent around Zamir White. Gardner Minshew is a good enough of a quarterback that they're still going to have a lot of red zone opportunities. I think the Raiders are going to have a good defense. They're going to put them in good spots this year. Don't be surprised when Zamir scores 10 plus touchdowns, and is an absolute league winner for your fantasy team. That's all I have for you guys today. Sorry about the scratchy voice. I appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you in the next one.